Y pues ha llegado el momento que todos esperamos y vamos a recibir con un aplauso a Frank Miller. En su nueva personalidad. Y Brian Nazarello. El momento estelar de la Mole Comic Con 2018. ¡Que se sienta el entusiasmo! Y pues vamos a disfrutar de esta charla que la Mole Comic Con ha preparado para todos ustedes.
Okay, but, I have several questions for both you guys, but I have to translate the questions, and Angie will translate for the audience. Voy a hacer las preguntas en inglés y en español. Angie va a hacer la traducción de sus respuestas y vamos a empezar. Son preguntas bien específicas, perdón. Okay, first one is for you, Frank. We all began in the world of comics as readers. What titles captivated you and awoke your interest in working in this medium? Let me translate for the people. Todos empezamos como lectores y le pregunto cuáles son los títulos que iniciaron su interés para trabajar en este medio.
The first comic books I remember falling in love with, featured Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. I went on to fall in love with Batman.
As we all do.
Bueno, los primeros cómics a los que recuerdo que me enamoré perdidamente tenían a Superboy y Supergirl, los originales.
Sorry, this is for Brian. Getting a title like 100 Bullets to become a long-winded work proves that comics can be a medium for the noir genre. El tener un título que se mantuvo durante tanto tiempo como 100 Bullets demuestra que los cómics son un buen medio para el género negro, para el género de crimen y ficción, de ficción criminal. Do you think that this proves that comics are good?
Does it prove it? Well, it lasted 100 issues, so yeah, it proved it.
Yeah, but I mean, what we'd like to know is about your relationship with crime fiction and bringing it to comics.
I think at the time when I was doing it, Frank, you were doing Sin City, and David Lapp was doing Stray Bullets too. It was like
back in the 1950s, crime comics were gigantic. They're considered the most popular. In the 1940s and 1950s, crime comics were considered the most popular comics around. Batman and Superman were both introduced as crime comics. Batman appeared in detective comics. In the early 1950s, there was a wave of censorship of American comics what they were after specifically were crime comics. So crime comics became quite literally banned by a Senate subcommittee. So there were no crime comics for a generation. And then we got sneaky. Okay, I'll eat it.
Bueno, en esa época Frank estaba haciendo Sin Cities, estaba haciendo Stray Bullets y en realidad en los 50s y 40s los cómics de este género criminal eran los más populares. Así fue como se presentó a Batman en Detective Comics y a Superman. Y justo a principios de los 50s el cómic en Estados Unidos sufrió una especie de censura hasta que en algún punto fueron completamente prohibidos. Entonces pasamos de publicarlos a volvernos un poquito más discretos al tratar de hacerlos.
if you just break it down to its essentials, like superhero comics are just, I mean, it's cops and robbers in spandex.
Yeah. When I was doing Sin City, I realized at one point that I was drawing my character Marv leaping from one building to the next, and I was realizing that his trench coat was Batman's cape.
Pues si volvemos a la esencia, en realidad los cómics pues se tratan de gente capturando ladrones vestidos de spandex, ¿no? Y en cuanto a mi personaje de Sin City, comenta Frank, que me di cuenta de que tenía este reflejo cuando brincaba de un edificio a otro, que era muy Batman.
Now I have a question for both of you guys, which is, what do you think is the biggest difference between working on superhero titles and working crime, gritty, realistic stories?
The only difference that I see is that the characters belong to somebody else. I don't approach it any other way. Yeah.
But he's absolutely right. The biggest difference is that when you step in on Batman or Superman, you're coming in and they're protecting what they've got and what they have stretched into movies and TV shows and everywhere. Whereas if you've come up with something, then those characters are yours, and I mean they can even die in your hands.
Yeah.
And do.
But it's like the approach to character, at least I know from my point of view, and I'm pretty sure yours as well, Frank, that we don't approach character any different.
No.
You know, it's like find something to tell a story about.
Yeah.
Les pregunté la principal diferencia entre hacer superhéroes y hacer historias sobre historias negrocriminales con situaciones reales de realismo sucio. La respuesta.
Bueno, la única diferencia, la diferencia esencial es que los personajes le pertenecen a alguien más. En cuanto a Superman y a Batman, bueno, se protege mucho alrededor de esas historias que se contaron anteriormente en televisión, en películas. La diferencia es que este personaje que tú creas es completamente tuyo, entonces incluso puede morir en tus manos. E incluso cuando estás utilizando otros personajes, tienes que encontrar una forma de acercarte a ellos diferente o de tratarlos diferente, una forma de contar una historia.
Next one is for Frank, first in Spanish. Queremos que nos cuentes sobre Daredevil, que era un título que estaba a punto de ser cancelado y que se convirtió en uno de los cómics más importantes del momento y cómo lo catapultó a él como el más importante autor del personaje. Please tell us about your run on Daredevil, that from being a title on the verge of cancellation became the comic book to follow. I remember I was very young when it was the hot comic book in Marvel, and you became somehow the most important author working on this character. How your creative relation with Daredevil?
Every once in a while you get very, very lucky in a career. And Marvel had a really fun idea for a superhero. A superhero, I mean, all the other superheroes are known because they're really strong, or they can fly, or they're really fast. You know Batman, you know Daredevil because of something you can't do, you can't see. And but the title kind of lasted a long time, and the artist Gene Colan, who had made it famous, quit. He'd done it forever, and he just didn't want to do it anymore. And they didn't, you know, and I just waltzed into Jim Shooter's office and said I wanted to do it, and he decided to take a chance on it. And so it was a perfect place to do crime stories, which I'd always wanted to do, and I got to sort of expand upon my love affair with New York and tell crime stories. It was the best of times.
I was wondering, what for both of you, what crime novels did you read or do you love? I know you like Mickey Spillane, but what crime novels do you like?
Well, there's Mickey Spillane, there's obviously, but the classic American
Hard Boiled.
ones, Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, in particular, a bunch of lesser known.
La verdad es que en cuanto a Daredevil, solamente se tiene un golpe de suerte una vez en la vida, ¿no? Entonces, Marvel sentía mucho aprecio por este superhéroe, porque normalmente los superhéroes pueden volar, son fuertes, son invencibles, y se reconoce a Daredevil por el hecho de que él no puede ver. Entonces, Jim Collan, que era el encargado de realizar ese título, lo había hecho toda la vida, renunció, ya no quería hacerlo más. Entonces yo llegué a la oficina de Jim Shooter, le comenté que quería hacerlo y me dio la oportunidad. Entonces esto me dio a mí la oportunidad de poder hacer estas historias de crímenes que a mí me encantan, y pues parte de vivir en Nueva York me ayudó a tener este acercamiento particular.
De nuevo para Frank, la que todos queremos hacerle, ¿no? Que cómo fue empezar a trabajar con Batman y cambiar la historia de un personaje icónico, dirigiéndolo para un público más adulto. So, how was, this is for you, Frank, how was it arriving to Batman and radically changing the history of an iconic character, aiming it to a more mature audience? I know they ask they ask you all the time. But
No, it's I didn't come on saying I was going to try to turn the world upside down. I wanted to come in and have as much fun as possible with Batman. And I really had two things in mind. First, I wanted to make him a lot tougher. And I wanted to get that yellow circle off of that bat, which I always thought was kind of silly because it looked stupid. And what would be the first thing if you had a gun and Batman was coming at you? You aim at him. We got a yellow target right over his heart. But it was mainly just an exploration of the character, taking him back to really old versions of him. My visual for Batman was based more than anything on an old cartoonist named Dick Sprang, who did Batman during the 1950s, and did a very cheerful, smiling Batman. Well, my Batman smiled too, but it was a little different kind of smile.
Bueno, en realidad yo no empecé a trabajar con Batman tratando de cambiar todo radicalmente. Yo quería divertirme con él. Entonces básicamente me enfoqué en dos cosas. Primero, en quitarle ese horrible círculo amarillo sobre el que estaba el murciélago, porque era como un objetivo, ¿no? Una diana. O sea, ¿dónde está Batman? Pues ahí es el círculo amarillo que se ve. Y también quise regresar un poco en términos estéticos a una versión antigua de Batman, de Nick Sprang, que era una versión mucho más alegre, sonreía mucho. El mío también sonreía, pero por diferentes razones.
La siguiente es para Brian y es preguntarle cómo fue su experiencia al jugar con los dos lados, las dos caras de Superman, del Hombre de Acero en Superman for Tomorrow. Brian, this one's for you, since you're the blue guy, the guy in blue, I mean. What was your experience getting to play with the two opposite sides of the Man of Steel in Superman for Tomorrow?
That was, man, I didn't want to do that book. But
You just offered you so much fun.
no, Jim Lee told me I was doing it.
They'll do it.
Yeah, and like when he's, you know, he says like, hey, do you want to do Superman? It's like, oh no, because as soon as he says it, it's like, I'm doing Superman. Because he wanted to follow up Hush with a year run on Superman. I'm like, Jim, I don't know if I'm the right guy for you. But he's like, no, you are the right guy. And I'm like, I started thinking about it, and it's like, he's going to make a mistake. That's because for me, I think what makes us interesting, what makes us human, is the mistakes we make and how to correct them, and or not correct them and just keep going deeper and deeper into the abyss. But it all came from Jim. Jim started it, and he forced me to do it.
Bueno, la verdad es que no quería hacerlo. Y pregunta a Frank si le ofrecieron muchísimo dinero y sufrió mucho. Y dice que no, que en realidad fue Jim. Jim me preguntó si quería ser Superman, quería continuar con Superman Year One. Y yo me preguntaba, y definitivamente se lo dije, que yo no era la persona correcta para hacer este cómic. Yo sabía o pensaba que estaba cometiendo un error, pero creo que eso es lo que hace interesante estas circunstancias, que cometemos errores y los corregimos, o simplemente no los corregimos y continuamos.
La siguiente pregunta es para Brian, es preguntarle cómo fue trabajar con Frank haciendo la tercera parte de Dark Knight. Brian, this one's for you. How was it working with a guy called Frank Miller on DKR 3? How was that experience?
Well, as bad as Jim Lee was, Frank Miller.
No, I think people want to know how was your collaboration. ¿Cómo fue esa colaboración?
It was... It was fantastic, and I learned a lot.
Sending word back to Jim, you know.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was. We argued, we talked like the characters.
Did you dress like the characters?
You always seem to have a character on your shirt, so.
Yeah, you always seem to wear some kind of weird wrestling mask.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Bueno, para empezar, dice que fue terrible trabajar, tan malo como con Jim. Y después comenta que fue maravilloso, tuvieron la oportunidad de discutir los personajes, de hablar sobre los personajes. Pregunta a Frank si era necesario que se vistiera como ellos. Y comenta Brian que, bueno, él es el que siempre parece que tiene un personaje en su vestimenta. Y bueno, le pregunta que por qué lo dice si él es el que trae la máscara de luchadores y extraña, dice que no sabe a qué se refiere, pero bueno.
Okay, next.
Frank, we're really cool, aren't we?
Yeah, sure are, Ray.
La siguiente es preguntarle a ambos cuál sientes que es la principal diferencia tanto entre con el público con el medio desde que se publicó la primera parte del regreso del Señor de la Noche a la tercera. This is for both you guys, and it's what do you feel is the biggest difference both in audiences and in the audience and the medium since the publication of The Dark Knight Returns and DKR 3? The biggest difference in all these years?
I think it's a bigger difference between the publisher's attitude than it is in the audience. That book was among a number that happened at pretty much the same time, including everything from Watchmen to Love and Rockets to a host of books that were happening at the same time that taught the publishers and that the comic books weren't just for one group of people anymore, and it widened things. So I mean, I think that it's taken a while for the industry to catch up with its audience.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right, it's the publisher's attitudes that really changed because they're willing to take more chances now, you know?
All of a sudden, Marvel introduced the Epic line, DC introduced the Vertigo line, these were ways to try to adjust what was going on. But Dark Horse, from its inception, was a place that understood that the audience was the age range of the audience had changed, and they wanted the slightly older part of the audience.
Bueno, en realidad la mayor diferencia que pude notar fue el cambio de actitud que tuvieron los publicistas, no tanto por la audiencia. Es decir, había varias obras haciendo exactamente lo mismo en esas épocas, era como el momento de transición. Ya los cómics no eran para simplemente un tipo de personas. La industria tiene que mantener el paso para poder atrapar a la audiencia a la que se están dirigiendo en este momento. Y Brian precisamente concuerda, dice que justo la industria se está arriesgando más. Marvel con sus Epical Series, por ejemplo, pero Dark Horse desde el principio comprendió que su rango de audiencia era mucho más amplio, que los cómics no son solamente para un tipo de personas, y estaban buscando este target, este objetivo un poco más mayor.
The United States has finally joined the rest of the world in that comics are for everybody,
Yeah.
and not just for kids.
If anything, we have to expand much more to the children's realm.
Yeah, now we got to go back and get the kids.
Yep.
We left them behind.
Él dice que finalmente los Estados Unidos se unieron al movimiento mundial de cómics para adultos, que los cómics ya no eran para niños, y dicen, bueno, ahora tenemos que hacer más cómics para niños, ¿no? Ya es momento de regresar a los cómics para niños. Tengo una pregunta para ambos, es preguntarles en qué género se sienten más cómodos, si ciencia ficción, superhéroes o negro criminal. This is again for both of you guys. What genre do you feel more comfortable working on? I mean, between superheroes, science fiction, or crime fiction?
Yes.
Exactly.
Could you elaborate? Ok, le pregunté, ya vieron, pero le digo, ¿podrías elaborar un poco? Y Frank me acaba de decir, no, creo que no tengo que hacerlo. Okay, next question then. Okay, if you didn't like last...
Wait. I think, let me address that. I think at this point in both of our careers, it's not what we're working on, it's who we're working with.
Yes.
Okay, that's...
Okay?
And also you go from one to the other. I have a Sin City I can't wait to do. I'm in progress on the follow up to 300, and these are all things I'm dying to get to. So this what's wonderful now is it's changed. When I first got into comics, there were guys in tights. That was it. There weren't even westerns or. You've heard of westerns? Yeah, they used to make them, but and it's starting to diversify again. So it's starting to really open up. Dream come true.
Creo que en este punto de nuestras carreras no se trata de en qué estamos trabajando, sino más bien con quién estamos trabajando. Y pues es justamente eso. En este momento Frank tiene otro Sin City en puerta, tiene una secuela de 300. Entonces cuando empezaban los cómics era más una cuestión mucho más estricta en la temática, pero ya se ha diversificado bastante.
Okay, la siguiente es para Frank Miller, y es de todas las adaptaciones cinematográficas de tu trabajo, ¿cuál es la que te ha dejado más satisfecho y cuál la que menos? Temo que me vaya a pegar, pero bueno. Frank, of all the movie adaptations of your work, which one has satisfied you the most, and which one is the one you like the best? And I said maybe he'll beat me for asking this.
I love the Sin Cities. I love 300. What bad ones are there out? I've been very lucky.
We all been. Pero dicen que le encantaron la de Sin City 300 y que ha tenido mucha suerte. Yo digo que todos la hemos tenido. We all been very lucky having your work, both of you. Okay, again for both of you guys, what do you have more fun writing? Which kind of character are funny to work with, heroes or villains? ¿Qué personajes son más divertidos de trabajar, los supervillanos o los superhéroes? Los héroes o los villanos? And I mean both in the superhero genre and out of it.
Guest stars. No. Minor characters tend to be the ones who you can play the most with. But when it comes to heroes and villains, they make each other fun.
Bueno, las estrellas invitadas, obviamente. Bueno, no, más bien, son los personajes menores, los secundarios. En realidad, los villanos y los héroes están ahí para complementarse.
What you, Brian?
What he said, yeah.
Lo que él
Wait
dijo.
for the next one. I'll do it.
Yeah, okay.
We always do the same answers, man.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other, you know? So you need them, they make each other fun.
Unless you're doing Peanuts.
Right. Well, you know what? I would argue that Lucy is the villain in Peanuts.
Okay, Lucy's the villain, you're right.
Bueno, comenté que justamente son los superhéroes y los villanos los que se complementan y hacen que todo sea divertido, se necesitan uno al otro. Excepto si estás haciendo Peanuts o Charlie Brown. Y ya llegaron a un acuerdo aquí de que en realidad Lucy es la villana de Peanuts. Entonces, ya.
I want to ask who the bad guy in Dondi is. Nobody knows about Dondi. Nobody ever read Dondi. Nobody can even figure out what gender Dondi was.
¿Qué tal el villano de Dandy? Nadie ha leído Dandy, nadie sabe qué género es Dandy.
Okay, all right.
No importa.
I'd say it was Donnie because he had those black eyes.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Omen.
Yeah, it was Donnie.
Seguro era Danny porque tenía estos ojos
Dondi
oscuros.
was evil.
Era malvado.
They're all too young to ever heard of
Right.
Dondi.
Son muy jóvenes para haber escuchado de este título.
I'm not young anymore. Para ambos es ¿qué sienten acerca de las adaptaciones de las películas sobre personajes de cómics y si es bueno para el medio impreso. This is for both of you again. What do you feel about the comic book based movies, and if you think it's good for the print medium or for the comic book medium in general, the comic book movies?
They're good.
For the medium, I mean for book culture.
By comic movie, essentially, you mean superhero movies.
Well, there's enclosed movies also.
Sure, but I say if the movie's good, it's good for us. If it's bad, it's bad for us. You know, if it's bad, it usually just usually tells everybody they were right about thinking we were so lousy. But if it's good, hey, they go, yeah, great.
Bueno, se reduce a que si la película es bueno para nosotros. Y si la película es mala, pues es mala para nosotros. Si alguien va a escribir alguna crítica diciendo que qué horrible está el libro en el que se basaron, el cómic en el que se basaron, de todas formas.
Yeah, look what, you know, a film like Black Panther or Wonder Woman, look what it's done to those characters' profiles. Who, like Black Panther, I don't think anybody knew who Black Panther was.
Whoever knew Wonder Woman could be so cool.
Right.
I mean,
Bueno, es simple cuestión de ver a Black Panther y a Wonder Woman. O sea, hay que ver lo que la película hizo por ese personaje. Digo, no es como que nadie conociera a Black Panther antes y pues en realidad no sabíamos que Wonder Woman podía ser tan padre, tan cool.
Ok, esta es la última pregunta que yo tengo, que es para ambos, que es cómo ven el medio del cómic actualmente y hacia dónde creen que van. This is again for Brian and Miller and Frank, and it's how do you see the current comic book landscape, medium, and where do you think it is going to, where it is headed to, the comic book medium?
yeah, where I think it's going, where it has to go is everywhere, because we can't stay doing one kind of comic book. Like, I mean, it was superheroes forever, but that followed a period where it was horror and crime. And now that the audience is every different age there is, it's all over the world. You got to start doing. It's got to be as creative a field as possible. In order for that, there has to be as much freedom to explore new kinds of stories.
Yeah, I don't know, it seems like the direct market seems to be shrinking. That's a U.S. thing, and you know, I think comics are getting. What's happening now is people are waiting. They're not the monthly fix isn't as important as it used to be. I mean, it is for the people who like to talk about the stuff. I mean, complain about the stuff online. So they need to read it.
What do people do online?
They complain. That's a nice way of what they do. So people are reading them, and they're taking more seriously because they're going into bookstores right now.
Well, the other thing is that you got to understand that much of what we think of as classic novels in America were published in magazines first and later collected. Charles Dickens, he introduced all of his books chapter by chapter.
Sure.
And so that's, now that we've been thinking more in terms of, what we call the graphic novel, and people are using wacky terms like story arc and so on. We're all in the business of getting on the shelves in bookstores, which is where, I've been campaigning that for decades, and I think that's the way we have to be thinking about this.
There was well, you should translate.
Bueno, más bien, ¿hacia dónde se dirige? Pues se dirige a todas partes, que es donde tiene que ir. No se está deteniendo en un solo género, ni en una sola historia. Han sido siempre de superhéroes, pero en algún momento se habló de horror, de historias de terror y de crímenes. Ahora nos estamos dirigiendo a diferentes edades, estamos por todo el mundo. Tenemos que ser tan creativos como podamos. Tenemos la libertad de experimentar ahora. Y bueno, refiriendo a lo que comentaba Brian, el mercado directo en Estados Unidos está disminuyendo. La gente ya no cree que esta entrega mensual sea tan importante, excepto, claro, la gente que lo comenta en internet, que va a quejarse y que en realidad es lo único que hacen en línea, ¿verdad? Más bien la gente ya está yendo a las tiendas de libros, ya está yendo a las librerías para conseguirlo. Y comenta Frank nuevamente que lo que conocemos como novela clásica en Estados Unidos, incluso aquí, antes eran los magazines, es decir, eran publicaciones periódicas. Charles Dickens le presentó su obra al mundo capítulo por capítulo. Y bueno, ahora hablamos de las novelas gráficas y de estos términos extraños como story art. Pero en realidad, por lo que estuvimos luchando durante décadas, que era llegar a librerías, eso ya se está logrando.
There was 5 years ago, people were saying, everything's going to go digital. Well, that didn't happen.
Oh, no.
People read them to read some.
I think I'll curl up with my laptop.
Yeah. But there's something about comics. The experience is there's a physical tactileness that needs to be part of it.
Hace 5 años la gente aseguraba que todo iba a ser digital. Obviamente no nos sucedió, porque parte de la experiencia de los cómics es que sean táctiles, es decir, que podamos tenerlos en nuestras manos y leerlos. Eso es parte de la esencia del cómic.
It seems like people read digitally, and if they like it, they go buy it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you sample it that way, but you need to have it physically. It's got to be on your bookshelf, because you know what your bookshelf is? It's your brain. It's how you show off your brain to people. Look at all that I've read. And nobody likes their brain this size.
And I'm sorry, there's a reason we call comics an art form. The fact is, that size is not the size I want to see my drawings printed.
Bueno, en realidad parece que si lo lees en digital y te gusta, vas y lo compras. Y todo va a tu biblioteca personal, porque eso en realidad representa tu cerebro, ¿no? Y nadie quiere que su cerebro sea el tamaño de un celular, ¿no? Y de la misma forma, los cómics son una forma de arte. Entonces no trabajaron tanto para que la gente tenga que ver los dibujos en ese tamaño, en ese formato, ¿verdad?
Nos queda tiempo para una última pregunta antes de terminar. Just one last question. And I'd like to know from Brian and from Frank, if you could praise a comic book album or graphic novel or author, if you could tell us about what not favorite, but a worth reading, and that you really love and maybe change your life as readers or authors, maybe if you read it when you were already grown up. And lo que les pregunto es que me gustaría que cada uno de ellos nos recomendara alguna obra, alguna novela gráfica, alguna pieza de noveno arte que crean que valga la pena leer y que les haya cambiado la vida como lectores o como autores.
Will Eisner's A Contract with God. I had grown up reading The Spirit and had adored it. And as far as I know, the man was dead or something. He was just a genius from the past. But then he came roaring back into comic books after teaching for a long time and working in advertising. And he didn't just come back with great new comics. It was as if he was stabbing a sword in the crowd and saying, this is what comic books are going to be like from now on. This is where we're all going. It was almost biblical. He showed us all where to go with them.
Will Eisner, A Contractor God, esa fue la razón por la que empecé a leer los cómics. Entonces yo sabía que el hombre ya no estaba ahí, que era un genio del pasado, y después de leer su historia, que había trabajado tanto tiempo en marketing, de repente llegó al mundo de los cómics y nos trajo esto y dijo, definió cómo van a ser los cómics. Dijo, así es como se va a ver el mundo del cómic, y esto es lo que necesitamos y esto es lo que sigue.
Brian, what about you?
Charles Burns did a series called El Borba, who was for some reason that's coming to mind right now. He was a detective, or he was a wrestler.
He was a detective wrestler, yeah. Dice que la serie del Boba de Charles Burns que se publicó en Heavy Metal, que es un luchador.
Is there any particular detail that leaps to mind about this character, Brian?
I can't put my finger on it.
Bueno, era un personaje que era un luchador de lucha libre y un detective. Entonces le dice, bueno, ¿qué te parece tan particular o tan atractivo de este personaje? Le dice, no tengo idea, no se me ocurre nada.
I have to really and warmly thank both of you for being here and all this audience. We've been very lucky, all of us. Thank you, Angie, for translating. Les agradezco mucho a ellos por haber estado aquí. Agradezco mucho a nombre del público. Hemos sido muy afortunados todos los que estamos aquí. Les pido un aplauso muy mexicano para estos dos que nos dan.
Que se escuche esa ovación, por favor. Que Frank Miller se lleve una buena impresión del público asistente a la Mole Comic Con. Como dice Beth, fuimos muy afortunados a presenciar esta mesa.